G'day guys, Mackie with the Outer Circle, and today I want to talk Battlefleet Gothic. I've got some terrible predictions for you, and by terrible predictions I mean I'm going to make some pretty educated guesses about what's going to happen with the Battlefleet Gothic tabletop game. Now, why did I pick this out of all the possible choices like Mordheim, Man of War, that kind of thing? Well, we were kind of talking about it on the Sunday night Discord chat we do with our subscribers. And I started sort of rattling off a few ideas I had about how I think Games Workshop will handle it, and I thought, geez, you know what? This would actually make a pretty good video. Because I love this hobby, but I'm incredibly cynical, and I can look at how they've handled other specialist games and sort of draw some conclusions. So, with that in mind, let's get started. First of all, I think they'll release a Battlefleet Gothic game very similar to the old starter set, which gave you Imperial versus Chaos. I think they'll update the sculpts for the ships, but more or less they'll look exactly the same. Obviously, this is because of established artwork and that kind of thing. It'll just be updated, a lot more complex. It'll look better. Just like how they updated Blood Bowl, how they updated Necromunda, that kind of thing. The gangs look the same, feel the same, but they're bigger scale, a little more heroic, that kind of thing. I think they'll do the same thing with Battlefleet Gothic. Something else they seem to do a lot of now is they create these board game within the system, where rather than releasing all the big rules and saying here's how you play Battlefleet Gothic, they release like this bastardized version of the game where it's got cardboard tiles that you play on. And I think that being a sort of skirmish game in space, it will be a hexagonal style tabletop or something like that, where models will move a certain number of hexes or squares or whatever it may be. Further to that, I think the bases themselves will be created with this in mind, and they'll probably have some sort of hexagonal or octagonal shape built into them. They may just be a simple circular base, but with a dial added to them, although I very much doubt this. I think the dials would more likely be a separate template as they were in previous versions if they go for a round base. What I do think though is that they will have these bases either as a hex or a dial or that kind of thing in order to allow making it simpler to move these things. You can say, alright, it's a 30-degree turn or 60-degree turn or whatever to the first point. It should be a 60-degree. Therefore that uses up a certain amount of your forward momentum, or you can only turn up to 120 degrees to the left or right in a turn. Eldar can go 180 degrees in a turn, and it will give them that kind of variety without having to get out a tape measure and grab out a protractor and work out the exact angle you're moving at. This will be a lot more conducive to the hexagonal gameplay, or tile-based gameplay I should say, because rather than being able to move sideways from one square to another or what have you, you'll pivot, point in a direction, and then move a certain number of tiles forwards. And I think that's a pretty simple concept to understand. I do think that the tile game will be different to how the actual game functions, but I think that, honestly, that sort of movement mechanic where you have markings on the base or the shape of the base and that's what you use to pivot would be something they would bring into the game as a whole. Further to that, cardboard tokens, cardboard templates, for damage, for objectives, for fighters, for torpedoes, all that good stuff. They've done it with all the other specialist games. They'll probably do it with Battlefleet Gothic. They might throw in a fancy injection molded protractor of some kind if they go the traditional path where you actually have to measure the angles. But again, I highly doubt they will go that path, but it could happen. I also think they'll make some sort of very fancy measuring tape like they've done for the Blood Bowl game, where you have the clipped together tape that shows like, you know, a short pass, long pass, that kind of thing for Battlefleet Gothic. Probably be some crazy like Blanchitsu styling, you know, like just covered in skulls and aquillas and weird Gothic architecture, and yeah, why not? why not? It's the appropriate use for it on a template. So yeah, Imperium and Chaos in a starter set. Further to this, you'll get the main rulebook as an optional bundle accessory. And it'll be like, the how to play a Battlefleet Gothic. And this will be the proper rulebook, not the bastardized version for the board game. On top of this, there'll be cards, because of course there will. And I'm not against cards as a gameplay mechanic. I think it's in fact a fantastic mechanic if it's done correctly. The problems arise where you have systems like X-Wing, where you take cards from other ships, and it affects different ships in the game, and you start sort of pulling shit from all over the place, and you have to go out and buy additional kits just because that has the card you want, and incorporating that in that creates a lot of problems for balance. So I think that's something they've got to stray away from. But yeah, cards. There'll be simple ones that give you the stats of your ships and allow you to mark damage and that kind of thing, and there'll be more complex ones. Well, not more complex, but ones that are about the gameplay itself. They might allow you to basically perform your orders. So you used to have the old order dice for each ship. That might change to a card-based system, where instead of doing your orders, you might play up to 3 cards per turn, for example. Alright, this ship is going to divert all power to engines, and you'll get to move an additional tile or 2 or something on the board. That may be the way they go with it. So, that's your core set. So what's going to happen on top of that is just like they've done with Blood Bowl, just like they've done with Necromunda, where they bring out these lame Season 1, Season 2 expansions. I think they'll do the same thing for Battlefleet Gothic. Why? Because they don't have enough staff to fully look after these games, and the staff they do have are so stretched they can't bring out all the content at once. So they release it in these tiny supplements that, well, frankly are overpriced for what they give you, but we're buying this game anyway. We can't really complain about price now, can we? So they'll bring out these Blood Bowl style and Necromunda style supplements. And it might be something like Sector 1 or Sector 2, and this will be a sort of rules, basically, for the different factions. Probably 3 to 6 months between each book. And your first one will cover, like, you'll get your Imperials, you get your Chaos, maybe the Orcs or the Eldar. They'll be like your popular factions. They'll be in like your first book. Then your second book, you get like your Necrons, your Tau, your Dark Eldar, and your Space Marines. So that's the way I think this sort of thing would go, is giving you these different factions brought out over different books. As for the ships themselves, well, thanks to, Battlefleet Gothic has always been a relatively modular game, at least for Imperial and Chaos ships, because they're in plastic. And Orcs, you can just build whatever the hell you feel like on the day. They'll probably bring out a set of builds that you can do, where you can just swap in the gun turrets on the sides of ships, for example, out for, say, fighter bays or ordnance bays, that kind of thing. You might also get the option of having upgrade kits. So you might have like an Imperial Eagle prow, like a giant crazy Eagle prow, for example, and there'll be like your Imperial Fist prow upgrade in order to sort of stylize your fleet as an Imperial Fist fleet. And they'll be really like basic things. Nergal, of course, it'll be like the old Chaos Battlefleet Gothic Nergal range, where you just can replace panels with these Nergal panels, and the Terminus Est and that kind of thing. So again, pretty common sense stuff. Resin upgrades for plastic kits, and the plastic kits will have some modular aspect to them. There'll probably also be a snap fit set, and I dare say there'll be 2 sides that clip together, and then a top and a bottom part that clip on, and then maybe a clip on bow and engines. So it'll be like real basic, like 5 or 6 parts in a ship, and then you'll be able to accessorize like the turrets on the sides. Simple. They'll also be probably bought out in one of those, Season 1, Season 2 type books. Sort of like your mercenaries, your fortifications, your Blackstone Fortress, that kind of thing. So rather than, again, bring it all out at once, they'll be like, any faction can use this, like your star player aspect, your hired guns, that kind of thing. So, yeah. Basically, that's what I think they're going to do with Battlefleet Gothic. I think they're going to be creating a game system that just like all the other Specialist games, it comes with a bastardized version of itself. The full experience. It's going to have card mechanics. It's going to have rulebook, like the old version of the game. There'll be plenty of tokens and templates and that kind of thing. There'll probably be themed dice to your faction, because of course there would be. That's what they do for everything now. That's the way they make money. Accessorizing. People who, you know, they might love the Tyranid fleet. So then they go, oh, geez, you know, I need some Tyranid themed dice, and they'll probably be like some messed up alien dice that look like it's straight out of a HR Giga drawing. And hey, that's fine. If people want to buy that, go for it. But these are the sort of things I predict will come out with this game. And there might be some sort of potential tie-in with video game titles or that kind of thing. I don't know. This is all just an educated guess based on what we've seen before. Why do I think Imperials and Chaos are the sort of the go-to starter set? One, it's been done before, and two, they're the two biggest races you think of when you think of Battlefleet Gothic. It was a conflict between the forces of Abaddon and the Gothic Segmentum Battlefleet. So, makes sense that that's what you're going to base your game around. Just like how Blood Bowl has humans and orcs. Hey, what are the two biggest fantasy races people think of? Oh yeah, humans and orcs. You know, there may be elves after that, and dwarves. But it just makes sense. Anyway, Mac with the Outer Circle. Love to hear people's thoughts and feedback below. Do you think that my sort of custom Battlefleet Gothic bases and clip together ships idea is crazy? You know, don't think they'll go that way? Do you think that they're going to go for the good old Battlefleet Gothic, exactly the style of what we've had before, and just about give us the same game again? Do you think they're going to go for the card-based system? Any of that kind of thing? I'd be curious to know. Anyway, thank you all for watching the episode, and I'll see you all next time.